Assalamu alaikum, ladies, and welcome back to the Balance and Thrive podcast, where we uncover the hidden root causes behind women's energy crashes, hormone chaos, and emotional burnout. And we rebuild our health in sync with the rhythms that Allah has already placed around us and in our bodies. Now, today's episode is a very special one, and I've been really looking forward to it because we're going to be diving into something really powerful and I feel often overlooked. And that's the link between our nervous system, our metabolism, and how that impacts us as mothers, wives, and women. If you are in my private group, you hear me often mentioning what is the emotional connection to this? What is the emotional issues behind what your body is presenting, right? So it's something that is huge. And I couldn't think of a more apt guest on this podcast today than Mumina Abdullah. And she's a woman whose journey speaks directly to so many of you. So just a little introduction about her. Maybe some of you have heard of her. Some of you maybe have even worked with her. Allahumma barik. So Mu'mina spent years struggling with her own chronic symptoms. She was juggling her career and her family until her child's digestive and behavioral challenges became the wake-up call that changed everything. She left the world of chasing symptoms and moved into deep root cause healing. And now, with over 2 decades as an educator and multiple certifications in diet, lifestyle, mindset, body correction, she's helping women, guiding them back to clarity, strength, and trust in their bodies without fads, without force, without any of the fluff. So in this episode, we're going to unpack what healing actually feels like. Why do we have these food rules? Why is there fear that keeps women stuck? And how this is really very much connected to our faith. What does it mean to have nervous system safety? What does it mean to have nervous system safety? And how we can feel strong, how we can be clear and in control again. You'll get an opportunity, inshallah, in this session to hear both of our angles, hers through the lens of behavioral change, mindset, and mine through circadian rhythm, metabolic function, and emotional regulation, all tied together in a way that feels deeply relatable and actionable, inshallah. So sit back, enjoy, and also participate actively, inshallah. Share your comments, put questions in. We will, inshallah, through the session be referring to them. You are open to unmute as well, and pose your question live. Just bear in mind that this is going to be recorded. So if you can just keep your voices in neutral tones, and it will be uploaded onto YouTube. So if you're not happy with that, then just pop a question into the chat box, inshallah. We will open it up at the end also, if we've missed anything, inshallah, or you have burning questions that we may not have covered, inshallah. So just before we begin, I'm just going to hand it over to Mu'mina, so she can just mention a little bit about herself, about her journey, and how she's ended up where she is today, benefiting many women. Allahumma barik. Assalamu alaikum, Mu'mina.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair for having me here. And salam alaikum to all the women who are here, and happy to be here speaking with you today. My journey started when my 4th child started showing symptoms of digestive issues, behavior issues, learning challenges. That's when I really started to pay attention to needing to be able to find a way to recover our health naturally, because with him, he was 3, he was having screaming fits every morning, and came to find out that was because he was having stomach aches every morning. And so when I started to look into it, it was like, oh, this is normal. Just give him Panadol. He'll grow out of it. And the symptoms he had were really pointing to severe chronic illness. And that wasn't something that I wanted him to live with if there was something I could do as a mother to help him. So, Alhamdulillah, through prayer and guidance, I was guided to a way to recover naturally. And in doing the research and in learning about how the body functions, I realized that we all needed it as a family. So, for myself, I had many of the symptoms that I was ignoring and just trying to manage and just felt like I had to live with them. So, that was arthritis, pain, fatigue, multiple miscarriages due to hormonal issues, anemia that I had all my life, chronic constipation, food sensitivities, asthmatic symptoms. So I had many, many symptoms that I was just ignoring, pushing through, and just literally felt like this is how life was supposed to be, to the point where I had decided that at the age of 50 that I would probably need my hips replaced, with prosthetic hips, because that's what my father did. He was in his 50s when he had his operation for arthritis. So I just felt that this was my my prognosis. This was my direction in health, and that there was nothing I could do about it. So Alhamdulillah, in changing the way we ate, we saw so many symptoms just start to fall away, alhamdulillah. And this is by the will of Allah, that it led to a total life transformation. So for me, the first thing I noticed was that the arthritis pain started to go away. Fatigue dropped. My energy levels were back. And at the time, I had my 3-year-old who was very difficult. Alhamdulillah, his condition improved. I was also nursing a 6-month-old baby when it started. So life was happening, and I also had 3 older children who were doing the school thing and homeschooling, etc. They were going to Medcas, we were homeschooling. And so I often hear women say, well, when life gets easier and, when things settle down, subhanAllah, that doesn't happen. When you are guided to a solution to reach well-being, take that solution, regardless of what's happening, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to facilitate it for you and to aid you in it. And like I said, subhanAllah, it led to a total life transformation. So my health issues just started dropping one by one. One of them was my miscarriages. Previously, I had 8 miscarriages, and after changing our lifestyle and changing the way we ate, I didn't have those hormonal issues anymore, and went on to have 4 more children without any issue, alhamdulillah. My husband, he was diagnosed with IBS and had severe environmental allergies his whole life. Those issues went away. He hasn't taken medication in 10 years for these issues. My other children, I saw also in them behavior issues and learning issues like ADHD and hyperactivity. And alhamdulillah, those issues started to go away. And over the years of seeing that, keeping up with this lifestyle keeps you well, alhamdulillah, and by the will of Allah, it keeps you in a state of well-being. And so it has become my focus to educate women that, whatever you're seeing in yourself, in your children, and your family, inshallah, there are ways to heal, there are ways to recover, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't put any ailment or any illness on earth without its cure. Okay. So strive for well-being, seek well-being, and inshallah you will get there. So don't despair, don't give up, but once you see the symptoms and you understand them, take action toward well-being.
Allahumma barik. I mean, I think there was so much in there that many of us can relate to, and even with myself, in my own personal journey, I can see similarities, the miscarriages, the fatigue. SubhanAllah, what a journey, Allahumma barik. And absolutely you're right. I think we often hear that. And we probably made those excuses down the line to, oh, I'm busy, the kids are priority, I'll deal with it when the little one's a little bit older. And we make all of these excuses, and it doesn't make the situation easier. It just doesn't, subhanallah. So that is that idea of, when we start improving, we will see that difference and that impact in our families. That is something that I wish so many more sisters would grasp onto. Subhanallah, it's so true. And just first off, you mentioned sticking to this lifestyle, where you've seen benefits with yourself, with your children, with your husband, Allahumma barik. When you say lifestyle, Mu'mina, what kind of things are you talking about?
I'm talking about eating in a way that helps you maintain your health. That's number one. Um,
Mhm.
and then other things. So other things you tack on to that, like trying to be as pure as possible, meaning staying away from chemicals in your daily life, changing things out. So your personal care products, your cleaning products, your clothing, all of these things lend to it. Start with cleaning your body first, recovering your body first, and then moving into different aspects of your life. So, lifestyle changes that we made at the time where we were at our sickest, we were living in the city in a high rise building surrounded by construction. So in those years that
Mm.
we lived in that environment, I contracted a lung infection while I was pregnant. So I had to take Licks for almost 3 months to clear that lung infection. My children constantly had runny noses, coughs, and just sick, just random ailments all the time.
Mm.
And so as we started to make these changes, we realized, okay, we have to get out of the city. So we moved from the city back into a house because we used to live in a house. So we moved from, building, high rise building back into a villa. So that was the first change. Clear, fewer people, cleaner air,
Mm.
etc. We started growing food because at the time when I started learning about foods and food systems and how the way foods are grown affects our bodies, I couldn't get organic food easily where I was. And at the time, because at the time that wasn't a thing. So we're talking about
Mm.
a little over a decade ago where, it just wasn't as big as it is now. So going to the
Yep.
grocery store, that's what I had access to. Trying to go to a labeled organic, and I say labeled organic because there are foods that are organic that are not labeled. But at the time, I was just, okay, get organic food, and label organic food was 3, 4 times more expensive than
Yep.
our normal food. So our budget couldn't handle that. So I was like, okay, well, you know, again, take things into your own hands whenever you can, do what you can. So I was like,
Mm.
okay, well, I can't buy everything organic right now, but at least I can try to get a few things. So I started growing, started learning about how to grow food in the desert. And in that led to a journey where I ended up, pursuing a permaculture degree, a certificate, so I can design
Mm.
gardens and food
And
systems, specifically in desert environments, because the desert environment is one of the most difficult to grow in.
yes.
And so, in that whole thing, it went through us getting, growing our own chickens, raising chickens for eggs, you know. So this is a type of lifestyle we gravitated toward. So now we are completely out of the city. We're about 45 minutes away from the city. And we live in a or rural area. people grow here, they garden, they raise animals. And so we're surrounded by kind of people who have these same ideas. Of course, that is a progression over 10 years. But when I
Yes.
started, I would have never imagined that it would have come this far. When I started, I just wanted my little boy to stop crying every morning,
Mhm.
literally. I just wanted him to stop
Okay.
crying. And, it led to a journey. And journeys don't really end, they just kind of change directions and progress and slow down sometimes, speed up sometimes. But don't be afraid to start that journey, you know. Don't be afraid to make changes. Sometimes you have to be the one that starts, the one that's
Mm,
strange. You have to be
agree.
that person, to develop yourself and develop your family. Nobody's going to want for you and your family what you want for them. Okay.
Mm,
And so we can't be affected by, well, nobody else is doing it. It's not popular. Because I see some women who struggle with this. It's not popular. I don't see it on the internet. Right. But is it what's right for you? If it's what's right for you, do it and tawakkal ala Allah.
Allahumma barak. And that sounds so beautiful. And I think maybe there'll be a few of us thinking, wow, subhanAllah, that is, ideally where I'd like to be. And that is what you've said, a progression over 10 years. And I think we underestimate, how much we can actually get done. That yes, it may just seem like a dream now, but it's those small steps in the right direction. And as you said, it's a journey, and even with health you don't reach one spot and think, okay, yes, I've made it, because that's
Right.
not what health is, right? There isn't a destination, and
Yeah.
as we grow older, as things shift in ourselves, in our family, there's going to be different challenges. And I think it's
Hmm.
just about along that route, we gather as many tools as we can to be able to deal with that, inshallah. And that's the aim.
Yes.
Beautiful. Allahumma barik.
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent that you said tools. I like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
Because these are
alhamdulillah.
tools. Yeah, that's what you're building up. You're building up tools, your skills, and you end up being like that Swiss Army knife. You know what to pull out
Exactly.
when.
Exactly. Alhamdulillah. And I think for me, the thing with lifestyle, and what I mention often in my group is that yes, it's not just how you traditionally see when people say, when I ask for the sisters the questions, what is your lifestyle like? And they say, well, I work out now and again, I go to the gym, I eat healthy. But for me, it's not just that. And I think that's the same for you in the sense that for me, it's your routines, it's your habits, it's your thought processes. And these tend to have more of an impact on your health than maybe sometimes what you're even eating. And I think that is what we also need to shift. And again, nothing complicated. Again, it's not an overnight thing. It's just baby steps in the right direction, inshallah. And for you, when you mentioned, this whole situation with your son, what made you realize that, okay, you know what, I don't just want a quick fix here. I don't want to just scratch the surface. I don't just want to use this medication to silence his symptoms. What made you
Mm.
realize that?
Because I realized that in knowing what his symptoms were leading to, and
Mm,
his symptoms were leading to celiac disease, which is a disease that happens in the colon. It affects their digestion. Eventually, they'll end up with holes in the colon, multiple operations. This is through research, starting with a young child. They know,
mm,
they've published what the process looks like. So by the time the child is a teen, you should be expecting the first operation. By the time he's in his 20s, the next
mm,
operation. And so what I was looking at was a long-term illness and
mm,
disease. So it couldn't be fixed with Panadol. It couldn't.
mm,
It is like, what, who would say, yeah, we see that this is going to lead to something long term, but do something short term now.
Yeah.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
it just doesn't make sense. In that, if you looked at it that way, it doesn't make sense. Why would you say that something that's going to get worse progressively over time can be just bandaged or managed with something simple as just, kill the pain for right now, even
Mm.
though understand that his body is deteriorating. Even for in my environment, there I'm around people who have different illnesses and ailments, and I've always taken that observer approach. I watch people because, like I said, I had my own illnesses, I had my own symptoms, but I wasn't the type to jump into anything without understanding what it could do. So I have
Mm.
people who are around me who are like, oh, well, I'm trying this right now, or I'm trying this herb right now, I'm trying this exercise right now, I'm trying this, you know, seeds and water right now. And so I'll just watch and say, okay, well, let's see if it works. That's just the
Mm.
approach I've always taken. Like, well, let me see if it works. Okay, if it works for them, I'll consider it. But I kept seeing that over time, anything that was quick, you got a quick result, but within weeks, months, the symptoms would come back. Even things that I thought were promising now, doing more research, I see that even some of the very good protocols and recommendations that are out there, if you don't understand your body and if you don't understand what your body needs to recover, it still becomes a quick fix, even
Yep.
though it seems like it could be something that's long term. And
Yep.
so if you don't understand what's happening in your body, you don't understand your body's signals, you don't understand what your body actually needs to recover, the tools you need to give it to recover, you still end up back in the same place. And so when people look at long-term recovery, they immediately say, oh, that's too long. I can't stick
Yeah.
to that for this
Yeah.
long. But they don't realize they've jumped from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next over the same amount of time and are still struggling with the same ailments. And that's why that's been part of my call. No quick fixes. Nothing of value happens naturally this is fast. If you look at anything, fruiting trees, the process it takes to make gold, or these types of
Mm-hmm.
things that are in nature, how soil is built, it doesn't ever happen fast. Things of value don't happen fast. So if you value your health, you're going to have to put in the time to get where you want to be. Inshallah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Allahumma barik. That's spot on, and unfortunately we do live in a time where everything is on tap. We do want everything quickly. We want to see those results. And sometimes, you know what, it can be surprising because what I see with the women that I work with, that the body does respond. The body does respond and can respond quite quickly when it
Yeah.
realizes that it is getting that support, that you've
Yes,
now
exactly.
working with some sort of strategy, subhanallah. And unfortunately, even in the holistic wellness world, those like, oh, just take this seeds, right? Or just
Hmm.
try this herb, right? People automatically think, okay, well, I'm not using the allopathic. I know it's bad, the conventional route isn't good, but they don't see that they've actually just stepped out of one puddle into the next, just by thinking, yes, okay, I'll
Yes.
just take supplements, or these herbs and seeds instead, and that will fix it, right? And I think that is
Yeah.
the thing to realize, that, as you said, nothing that is valuable, or everything that is worth anything, is going to require that bit of time, is going to require that investment financially, time wise, with you even willing to make that change and experiencing that bit of discomfort. That is a given, inshallah. um
Yeah.
but yeah, So with
Excellent
the with
point
the
about discomfort.
Hmm,
Uh, this point about discomfort, that
yeah.
is a major hindrance, not allowing yourself to feel discomfort, even though the gain from this discomfort is more than the
Mm,
discomfort that you might be in now.
true, true. And I think
Go ahead.
that's what life is. There isn't this continuous feeling like, okay, now that I've tried all these things, that's it. I'm never going to get sick. I'm never going to be in pain, right? Because it's not how it is. Like we see that in what Allah has put in nature. There's day and night, there's cold and there's warm. There's always going to be these
Yes.
opposites. So I think for us to have the idea in our minds that, okay, once we reach a certain point, or once I've made this investment, once I've tried this thing, that I'll be better forever. Again, it's that idea that health isn't health is a continuous journey, alhamdulillah. And there's always going to be something. And I think with the environments that we are in, with the toxicity that surrounds us, with the emotional baggage that many of us hold on to, there's always going to be something that comes up. But as I said, when you have more tools in your tool bag, you know how to deal with them. You are better prepared to deal with what life hits you with. And for me and the ladies on my program, it's this idea that I keep mentioning to them about metabolic resilience. So you go through a certain process, you build up the system, and when things go off plan, or now you're at this point in your life where you're thinking, oh my God, I've got stress coming from every angle, you are now in a better position to deal with it. So your system doesn't shut down. So you don't end up
Yes.
being in that survival emergency mode for years and years. But for you, Mu'mina, with the ladies that you've worked with, um, what sort of patterns do you see in them? Where women do spend years just chasing those fixes. What sort of patterns do you see emerging?
Uh, well, a major pattern is that, like you said, we are living in this world where there's constant information being put out. There's a whole
Mm,
lot of information out there, and it becomes confusing and overwhelming. So the speed at which people or women are trying different things is actually even faster. So you're
mm,
talking about 2, 3 days and they're on to something else. And that's not
yes.
going to be sustainable. You actually can't even see results in that amount of time. Even for protocols, for me, a red flag is whenever you see a protocol that says 30 days, I'm like red flag,
Mm,
you know, that's not long enough. But we need to learn more about our bodies. We need to know how they function. We need to understand our body's cues. And like you said, your body will respond quite quickly once you give it the right tools and once you support
mm,
it in the correct manner that's specific to you. What's out there on the internet and on social media is very general. It misses a lot
yes.
of points. There are posts, people will say, well, what do you think about this? And I generally will have like 3 or 4 comments about a post because it's like, yes, that there's some truth to that, to what's being said, but there are 5, 6 other things that's not being said that you really do need to know before this fix will actually work. And as you mentioned about, jumping from one pool to another. That's
Mm,
exactly how it is. It's like, okay, well, this is natural. These are herbs, or these are, you know, these compounds are natural. Yes, but if your body is not ready to receive it, if your body
yes.
is not functioning properly, as Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah mentioned, that your organs will get to a point where they are not functioning the way they should. And many of
Mm,
any type of a supplement, herb, whatever it is that you're going to take, It's really dependent on your body to function and respond in a proper manner. If your body's not functioning and not responding, it won't work long term. So you
Yeah,
have to
absolutely. I think that
stop.
comes in also with what you said earlier, Mu'mina, in terms of like soil. Like if that soil isn't primed, is it if it isn't fertile, if it isn't ready, it doesn't matter what seeds you actually put in there.
Mhm.
It's that
Yes,
terrain isn't
exactly.
ready.
Exactly. It's not ready. It'll just
Yeah,
flush it out.
yeah, alhamdulillah. And that moment and that period of your life where your son was experiencing this difficulty, because often we see it, we see it in our children, we see them going through something difficult. How do you now, with alhamdulillah the benefit of hindsight, did you see, or do you see now, even with women that you work with, when that mother is dysregulated, when that mother hasn't supported herself, how that then impacts the child or their health?
Yeah. When mothers aren't in a good state, they're dysregulated, they're having other health issues. Typically, there are 6, 7, 8 symptoms that a mother's experiencing. This is going to affect how she can show up to her family, with her family. Okay. It's going to affect whether or not she feels like she can cook a meal,
Mm,
whether or not she can think through difficult situations, whether or not has the capacity to face the difficult situations. So, how does that replicate in the family? What does it look like? It looks like giving up, waiting for
mm,
someone else to fix the problems, allowing things to just pile up. Now, I'm not saying that this is purposeful. It's just that
mm,
that mom doesn't have the capacity in that moment to deal with all of the things. Okay. So a child could be having a temper tantrum. He's screaming, he's yelling. She doesn't know why. Why is he acting like this? I can't handle it. What would she do? She might just go to her room, close the door, pick up the phone, go on Instagram, and just start scrolling. But in reality, is the problem with the child? No, the child is hungry. Feed the child, the problem goes away. But if you're in that state where you're not thinking through things, you have a chain reaction. I got up late. Okay. So now breakfast is late. Breakfast is late. I don't feel like thinking about it. I don't have anything else to cook. I'm just going to wait till later. Child is crying. Mm, I'm going to avoid the child. Go to the room, close the door, remove self from the situation. Okay. What does the child receive? The child is now hungry. Uh, the child is going to be dysregulated. The child is going to experience some form of trauma. And so you get like, it just stacks upon stacks upon stacks. It just keeps escalating instead of de escalating. And if this continues without her being able to recover herself, then you get this situation becomes chronic. Okay, so it might be fatigue at first, then it turns into chronic fatigue. And then you find, every day no one eats anything in the house until 11 p.m. Okay, they've been snacking all day. So they're snacking all day, which means they're eating processed foods and all of the troubles that come with that. And so then their health deteriorates. And what a lot of people miss is the psychological effects of simply not eating well. Okay. It's
Yeah,
not just physical. We often think about the physical effects of it, but there are
yeah.
psychological effects to not eating well. And so these psychological effects are actually more profound, they're more compounded than the physical effects. Yeah, you might have aches and pains, but you take some painkiller, you work through the aches and pains. If you have brain fog, anxiety, depression,
Mm,
all of these things can be crippling versus physical pain.
yes, true.
And
Very
so
much.
her dysregulation is going to show up in the family, it is going to show up in the children, their behavior, their health, and the environment that they live in.
Yes, subhanAllah. And I think sometimes we tend to not realize our value and our worth in our homes. Um, and I often mention the story to the women that I speak with, and I say to them, it was rare to see my mum unwell. You know, Allahumma barik alayha. She was a horse of a woman. She is a horse of a woman. May Allah preserve her for safety and good health. Um, so when she was
Yeah.
ill, like, yeah, I think from childhood memories, I can remember two occasions of her just being in bed. So we would literally come home from school, come into the house, put our bags down, and be like, okay, now what? Now what? What do we do?
Mm.
Right? And
Hmm.
and I think it's that
Yeah.
idea of realizing that you're not just the one who bears the children and just does the cooking and the cleaning. Like, you are the family. Your mood, your emotional imbalances or emotional balance, all of that impacts the entire household, and you see it. If you're happy, if you're in a good mood, it just rubs off onto everyone else, and the opposite is true, right? So subhanallah, it's so important, I
Yes.
think. And I think there's this also this idea of obviously the children taking on everything that they see us doing, the children reacting in a way that we react. But it's not just them mirroring that behavior. I also feel that there is a mirroring of our biology, right? If we are going to get negatively impacted by our internal environment, well, guess what? The kids are also being negatively impacted too,
Yes.
because once she
Definitely.
once she starts regulating herself, once she's getting more daylight sunlight exposure, well, so are the children. Everyone else is going to have that domino effect. So yeah, subhanallah. And for you, because I think this question probably comes up a lot in our minds, but we know it's important, right? We hear all this stuff about trauma these days. So then why is it that women bypass themselves in this way? Why do you think, or what have you noticed in the women that you work with, that they just kind of step over this and not really take it on?
Um, some of it comes from expectation. The expectations on women, placed on women, more of them are modern, which means more expectations are placed on women, especially mothers. But also, it could come from upbringing as well, because like you mentioned about your mother and not seeing your mother ever sick, Allah Mubarak alayha. And this is the image that we have of our mothers. And so
Mm,
when we are ill, what does that bring? Well, why am I sick when my mother
yeah,
was never sick? Why
true.
can't I do what she did? And so
Yeah.
then you have shame, blame, and
Mm,
all of these psychological uh, thought processes that can be debilitating. Again, they can be more debilitating than your physical health. And so you're pushed to just keep pushing through instead of pausing and reflecting and taking time out to deal with your issues. But even in that, a lot of women are nurturing. We are naturally nurture others, and it could
yeah.
feel guilty to stop and try to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just these are several factors that lead women to just, oh, well, I'll do it later. Like you said, when the kids are a little bit bigger, when things slow down, when we're more financially able, when everything's taken
Mhm.
care of, then I'll take care of myself. But, you know, la samahallah, you know, you don't want that at that point to be too late because life keeps happening. It doesn't,
Absolutely.
you know, it doesn't
Mm.
stop. Um, yeah, so yeah, those are some of
Absolutely.
the factors that cause women to just keep pushing.
Yeah, yeah. And I think also there's that element in society as well. Culturally, as you said, we've seen our moms sacrifice themselves. So we just follow that pattern. And yes, as you said, you've got to be the one that says,
Yes.
hey, actually, I don't want that. I want to break this cycle, subhanAllah. So yeah, it's a really good point. Um, and in terms of your approach to food and your approach to healing, how are you seeing the connection in terms of our deen? Does it have a connection? How does that pan out with what you do?
And the connection to Dean, as in, uh,
Mu'mina, we can't hear you right now, sis. You just cut off. Okay, Mu'mina did mention that she may have some internet issues. So inshallah she'll be able to reconnect shortly. And I think this is an important question for many of us, right? Because our deen is literally our lives, right? We don't have a separation of the two. Um, and how can we then combine it together? Well, we already know, alhamdulillah, we know from our deen that our health is an amana, right? And we know these things, we hear these things often, but why does it not then become priority for us? Why is it that it's still something that is secondary, inshallah, to what is in our lives? Why doesn't it take priority? And it doesn't have to be complicated in that sense, right? Not at all. Momina, are you back, sis? Can you hear us?
yes, yes, I'm back.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. Continue with what
Alhamdulillah.
you were saying.
So, okay, so that connection is there. So the reason we want to pursue our well-being and our health is so that we can worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the best way that we possibly can.
Absolutely.
How we believe about seeking well-being is to have good thoughts about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in knowing that He didn't put anything here, any disease, any ailment without its cure. And this is one of the ideas that I start with because I have women who come with, well, I have this condition and it's incurable. No, it's not incurable. It's just that the people you went to first don't know the cure.
Mm,
Okay. So even in this belief, you have to change that belief that something that
yes.
you have, an illness that you have is incurable. Yes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tests us with different things, but we cannot believe that He created us in a way that we will be predisposed to disease, like things that people are saying, oh, it's genetic. That means you
Yes.
have to believe that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created you diseased. We don't believe
Mm,
that. You know, we don't believe that there are diseases that we see that don't have a cure, you know. So we start with that belief, and that builds a positive thought of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you're starting with that. And even knowing that you always have to take the means. Okay.
yes.
We won't
Yes.
ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. We don't ask Him to feed us. We don't ask Him to clothe us or to heal us without taking the means to get
Yes.
there. So there are several means. What we do as far as our diet, as far as ruqya, as far as anything that we do, these are all parts of the means, but we put our trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the results. And so your iman does play a part. But as you recover, it gets stronger. And Ibn al-Qayyim rahimahullah actually he talks about this point also, because there are people out there who say, well, if you seek any type of cure, then you have poor tawakkul in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, no, actually, you're seeking a cure, you're seeking a means of recovery and healing is directly related to your belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as the healer and the cure and the one who provides the cure. So we don't separate those two things. And as you become a stronger person, your ibadah, your worship also becomes stronger. As you start to, have your mind clear. For example, one of my clients, within 3 weeks, she says, SubhanAllah, I was able to get through my morning adhkar when I've never been able to before.
Mashallah.
And this is, amazing, subhanallah. Another sister told me, she couldn't read. She couldn't read a portion of the Quran, even though she always aspired to. Once she got her body better, started healing, started recovering, started getting her mental capacity back, she was able to sit and read without having, thoughts bombarded and overthinking things and being distracted. So she was able to now perfect that part of her ibadah. Another client I worked with was in such severe pain, she had started sitting to pray. And this is a sister who's not even 50 yet. She's not even 50. So she was sitting and praying, and that was affecting her because she was like, I feel much older than my years and I can't pray the way I'd like to. And alhamdulillah, with starting recovery, with knowing what her body needed, giving her body what it needed, she was able to stand, pray, and perfect her salah. May Allah accept it from us and them and everyone. I mean, so that connection to ibadah, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and worshiping him is tangible. It starts with what we believe about recovery in itself. And then it just grows from there, inshallah.
Inshallah, that's an excellent point. Allahumma barik. And it's important for us to realize that the body that we have, the body that we've been blessed with, Allahumma barik, is such an amazing system. And it is a system that is designed to heal. That is its default. Everything that the body does is always towards protecting you, always towards helping you heal, get that homeostasis back into the body again. So subhanallah, yeah, excellent point. That's a really good reminder that we have to remember that the cure is from Allah, and yes, take the means. Excellent point, alhamdulillah. And just what you've seen with the women that are in your space, because I always like to have practical points. I always like to have things that sisters can take away from this session that maybe they're noticing in their lives and they want to switch. One of them is related to fear around food. So like they want to make the changes, but they've maybe heard so many things around different food groups or just different ways to approach it that they are almost scared, frozen into taking action. What kind of food fears do you see?
Oh, food fears that I see. Fear of fat, and in particular, natural fats, animal fats. That is a huge one. And in conjunction with that, the fear of meat and other
SubhanAllah.
animal products. So I find that the women that I work with, or those who come to me, that is part of it. They are afraid. They don't know it at first. But then when it starts to come up, they're like, well, what about high cholesterol? Well, isn't this going to make me fat? Well, isn't it going to cause heart attacks? And all of these have been proven to, all of these ideas about natural fats and animal fats and how it affects your health, as well as meats and how they affect your health, they've actually been researched to find that that is not the case. And there are other factors that cause these diseases and ailments that are not connected to an overconsumption of meats and fats. Another food fear is dairy. And in this case, not having it. I find that, and in particular with children, the idea that children must have dairy products. And in reality, this is not the case. And we want to get over this idea because there are some children who dairy is what's causing the ailments and symptoms that we see in them. So not all dairy and not the dairy that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created for us, because we know that the dairy now in supermarkets and grocery stores have been changed. They're not in their natural form. But
Yeah.
the idea that children must have dairy, that's one of those fears. They're afraid if you say, okay, the child needs to stay away from milk, but no, they're going to be malnourished. They're not going to have enough calcium, etc.
Yeah.
So these fears, are through training, miseducation,
Mm.
and everything that we see in our environments. And one sister I worked with said, I truly feel like I need to relearn everything that I thought I knew.
Yes.
And that's true. It's
Yes.
true.
True.
We need to relearn. We need to
And I
relearn
think
our
as long as you're
food. We need
willing
to
to,
relearn our bodies.
as long as you're willing to,
Mhm.
like, learn,
Yes.
unlearn, and relearn things, then alhamdulillah, you won't have any issues. You've got to approach health with an open mind.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes. Approach it with an open mind, for sure. Yeah.
So if you were now teaching and training women with some kind of structure to eat without
Mhm.
fear, what does that look like?
To eat without fear, you need to trust your body's signals.
Mm,
So learn your body's signals. Your body's going to tell you what's good, what's not good, how much, what's too much, what you need more of. Your body can be very clear in giving you
yes.
these signals. It's just up to you to trust, for first of all, learn those signals and what they mean, and then trust them. And trust
Mm,
those signals and respond accordingly. Then you dispel that fear. Because if, let's say salt will be another one. If you're craving salt, and that's a good thing for your body's telling you you need more salt.
mm,
Forget what you were taught about table salt and what it does to the body, because those studies are based on table salt, not
yes.
natural salts that people have been using for centuries. Okay? So if you introduce this good salt to your body and your body says, "Hey, I need some more of that." Okay? It's going to be a strong signal. I just want to put more salt. Put more salt. Keep putting it until it doesn't taste like you need salt anymore.
Mm.
Very simple principle. Just listen and respond.
Yeah, I love that.
And
Oh my
this is
God.
how you can get over that fear.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, I agree. And that is something to learn, to actually listen to your body, because it's constantly giving us information. So yes, subhanAllah, that is a really good point. And in your words, Mu'mina, inshallah, just as we're gonna wrap up in a few more questions, inshallah, how would you describe what true healing feels like? Not just what it looks like, but what does it feel like?
Mhm. I thought about this question, and the very first word that came to mind, and I was trying to figure out, okay, should I use this word or not? But it is what comes to mind. It feels like freedom.
Mm,
You are free from being bound to what's commonly accepted. You are free from being bound to uh, going to only particular segments of society to get
mm,
a response or answer to your problem.
yeah.
Uh, you are free from being bound to uh, chemicals, compounds, and something else that someone else has to make for you. Okay.
Yes.
So it, that's what it feels like. It feels like freedom. It feels like you have the capacity to do what you need to do to take care of yourself, regardless of where you are in the world, regardless of who is around you, regardless of what materials that you have, because some people feel like, oh, if I go somewhere where they don't have organic food, I won't survive.
Yeah. Yes.
Actually, that's not true. You know, that's not true. And so it that is in a nutshell, that is the word that came to mind, that when you have reached true recovery by Allah's permission, it feels like freedom. That's what.
Allahumma barik, I like that. And I think for me, it's also ease, the ease
Yes.
you now have in your life. So, you wake up and you're not panicking, you're not feeling anxious.
Mm.
You eat
Yes.
and you don't feel guilty.
Yes.
There isn't that snapping at your kids and crashing at, in the afternoons.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes for women, they think, oh, it has to be like my numbers need to be perfect, like my labs all need to show as yes, my bloods are there with it, right? But sometimes it
Mhm.
isn't about that. I think it's that feeling that you get.
Yeah.
You actually have energy to get things done. Your home isn't this battleground. You're not fighting with yourself anymore. It's just it's home. It's comfortable. Alhamdulillah. So yeah,
Yes.
alhamdulillah. And just a
Yes.
question
Yes.
from a sister who says, Jazakillah khair, Sister Mu'mina, for your very informative talk. Alhamdulillah.
Yeah.
Were you supported by a practitioner? Were you supported by a practitioner when you came upon this path when your child was ill and you also had issues?
Uh, Before I answer, there's a mic. Yeah. Okay. Okay, there we go. All right.
Yeah.
Was I supported by a practitioner when I first started with my son? No, I was not. I started doing preliminary research first and then asking about it. And when I started asking about it, that was the response to just give him Panadol, etc. I didn't have the resources to see a specialist at that point, which was really a catalyst to me actually needing to find a reason a solution, because we didn't have the resources to see a specialist. Even the test, I was like, subhanallah, they just seemed so out of reach at the time. But in that was a blessing, because
Mm.
if all of those things, wallahu ta'ala alam, were accessible, I probably would have gone that route. Even
Mm.
though I didn't want that for him. I've always wanted things to be more natural. But, when you see, oh, celiac, this is huge, that is your first thought is, okay, I need a specialist for this. And I think it
Yeah.
was a ni'mah that we couldn't go that route, because subhanAllah, it led me down this way, which is a, a a ni'mah that, I'm so thankful that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala showed us. And it's like the example of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will cause you to be ill to heal you. And that is
Mm.
what it really felt like in his illness. We healed as a family. So,
Allahumma barik.
no, I didn't have a practitioner at the time for the factors that I just mentioned, but subhanAllah, and by Allah's permission, the outcome was much better.
Alhamdulillah. And you know, something just came to my mind when you mentioned that, and I think it's a situation that many of us do end up finding ourselves in. You know, when you've got that diagnosis looming either in yourself or in your child, then when you don't have those options available, sometimes we operate from a place of fear. And then from that place of fear, we
Hmm.
may not
Yes.
take the decisions that, you know, are good long term. And so that's why I also think this work is
Yeah.
important for women, because no, you know, you ain't gonna know what you don't know, right? And
Right.
being in place, being in that place is overwhelming. You know, and we don't want to operate from fear, you know, because operating from fear is restrictive,
Yes.
you know, and then also it's pressure,
Yes.
you know, and then it makes us forget that,
Hmm.
subhanAllah, we do have a system that can actually heal. So I think that is why I also
Yes.
encourage sisters that, yes, you know, we hear often, you know, the prevention is better than the cure, right? We hear this all the time, but it's actually taking those steps so that you don't find yourself in that situation by the permission of Allah. You know, may Allah protect us all and you know, bless us all with good health. But you have the choices and you now know, and we go back to having the tools to take those steps. And you know, Allahumma barik, now there's a lot more sisters in this field. You know, there are opportunities, there are places that you can go, that you can reach out, and we should really make the most of it. And honestly, subhanAllah.
Yes. And and you have evidence now. You
Yeah,
know, you're not operating blind. You have evidence
yeah,
that shows that this works. You don't have to have 10 years of, you know, college training, you know, to help
yes,
yourself and to help your child. You can go straight
exactly.
into your kitchen, which is what our mothers did, our grandmothers did, our great grandmothers did. Really, what we're doing is returning to what people knew. And so,
Yes,
yes, it feels all new to us, but it's not new. And so, yeah, we want to stop operating from a place of fear and start operating from a place of confidence, you know,
yes,
and you don't have to do this alone. Like you said, there are many sisters who are in this field. We have so many people that we can reach out to. If you don't find, you know, what you need in one, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you know, bring you to another one of your sisters. But be open-minded, like you said earlier, open-minded to consider that there's a different way. You know, there's a way that you can do this so that your body helps you recover versus putting something in, you know, to get the results that you're hoping to get, which, you know, in other methods you might not, you know, because
mm,
they're not designed to recover. They're designed to mask.
yes,
And
yeah,
so,
agree.
yeah,
And will also keep you dependent, I think.
yes, yeah, for sure.
And just before we wrap
So,
up,
yeah,
Mumina,
operating from fear.
sorry,
Mhm. Mhm. Go ahead.
go ahead, sis. Just wrap up.
Yeah, we want to get out of that mindset. Yeah. Yeah, we just want to get out of that mindset that we're not capable and we don't have the skills. We have the skills, we can learn the skills, and you have the capabilities by Allah's permission to do what you need to do to support yourself and your family.
Absolutely. And you know, I think one of the big blessings, and we hear, you know, we hear all these things all the time, especially in relation to like mothers, you know, and that intuition, that gut feeling that we have
Yes.
about whether this route is right or not. You know, we have to tap into that. It's not just something that is said, you know, and I'm sure many of you have been in that situation with your own child and you've felt felt it. You felt this is the right route or this is the wrong route. You felt it instinctively, and either you've ignored it or you followed it.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
And just before we wrap up here, Allahumma barak, I don't want to take too much of your time, Mu'mina, and I really appreciate you being here with us today for this session. What would you say are any of your personal non-negotiables for your health, for, being in control of your health and, that of your families? What are your personal, maybe daily non-negotiables that help you stay on that path?
Uh, Daily non-negotiables. This is an excellent question, and it got me really thinking. But not ignoring your body. That, once you hear or you feel, respond. That is a non-negotiable. Um, you have to make sure that you are staying in tuned with your body. So if that means you need to eat more meat right now, eat more meat right now. Okay.
Mm,
So that to me is a major key to maintaining your health, really being in tune and staying in tuned. Okay. Staying in tuned and responding. Another one is not compromising on deen. And actually, I would put this first, not
yeah.
compromising on your values in reference to the deen. Even if it's small things, don't let life get in the way of your morning azkar and your evening
Mm,
azkar, and keep growing in your deen. Keep growing in your knowledge. Keep adding just one little thing at a time. It doesn't have to be anything profound. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves that action is consistent, even if it's small. So if you just add one new dua, you know, one dua that I love, which is Allahumma inni as'aluka al-mu'afata fi dunya wal akhirah. Ask Allah subhanahu wa
mm,
ta'ala for well-being. Oh Allah, give
mm.
me well-being. Just say that.
Allahumma barik. I love that. So beautiful. Jazakallah khair. That's a beautiful dua. Jazakallah khair for the reminder. And Jazakallah khair for your time today. I really appreciate it. Jazakallah khair for the ladies who have come here live. And inshallah, we will have more sessions like this. And inshallah, this will be available on the YouTube. If you want to go back to listen to it or you want to share it, you're more